think I'm good.
It'll be here before we know it.
Live, live, live. Look, guys and gals, happy Friday. Sponsors and sites unite. We're starting out with clinical research is booming. Robert said he doesn't feel it. Fox feels it. I feel it. Robert feels it too, probably, but it just depends on the day. But we're coming close to SOS, guys. We're a week out. We're not here to sell tickets because we have none to sell. But we're here to get you guys pumped up about the industry. And we're here to discuss topics centered around sites and sponsors. Because let's face it, like for all the CRO apologists that exist out there, um, which I'm a fan, I like reading the stuff too. The industry boils down to the sponsors paying for everything and the sites doing the majority of the work. Not that people that work at CROs don't work a lot, they work way too much, and there's probably a lot of unfairness and injustice there. But we're here to talk about where the rubber meets the road, and that's the sites and the sponsors paying for it all. Are there any late openings for SOS? I get this email every
Oh,
hour,
David.
every hour.
Uh,
David, Dr. Ramirez, I'm telling you, I don't think we can. Even if I tried, I don't think I would be able to.
so, I mean, there are some discretionary tickets that we could still give out. The one
Okay.
thing I'm worried about is you remember those cool bags made by the special needs adults?
Mhm.
Yes.
We
Why
only
don't you
ordered.
explain it? Why do you explain it a little bit?
All right, so the idea is I'm part of the nonprofit groups, a lot of really good missions. We work with a company that hires special needs adults to do screen printing, which is perfect. So they, so special needs adults, people who really wanted to work, they're the ones that made the bags and lanyards for SOS, which means that that's awesome. But we only ordered 400, Dan.
Ah,
So
yeah.
it, odds
Well,
are we're gonna run out of bags.
we
Which,
might be able to. Literally this last hour, people have been messaging me. Hey, it's too late. I told them it's too late, but if not, I can go back and say, hey, it's not too late, but you may not get a bag.
yep, I think that's gonna be where we get. If you registered, if you have a name on your badge and it's printed and you got everything, you get the bag. If you have a handwritten badge because you came in the week before and wanted to come, I don't know if we're gonna have a bag for you.
Okay. Speaking of bags, can we? How do we secure the metaphorical bag of opportunities that 2024 will present in clinical research?
Perfect.
Sponsors, individuals, sites, consultants. We got Robert on, who's, I mean, you should be a regular. You were a regular at one point.
Yeah,
SOS ally supporter.
all day.
Uh, it's been a while since we've done a pod. Maybe discuss a little bit about what's going on with you and how you're securing the bag or for yourself, for your company, all in between.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit different. I have a different perspective, of course, still liaising with different sites and networks. The SOS panel that I'll be part of, I'm super excited about. I've gotten a lot of emails requesting, meetings at the conference. So if I
Wow,
haven't responded,
already. The
literally
app
like
is not even out yet. Wow.
dozens. So if I haven't responded to your email and you're watching this stream, please forgive me, but seek me out there. I'll be at the social the night before and obviously at the conference. So it's nothing personal. I've just been kind of bombarded with a lot of emails. So that's great. I'm excited to network with everybody and still engaging and building site lists and people of interest and things like that. A lot of lessons learned from our, phase 3 program that's coming to an end here. Very shortly. And but I still see problems with the capital markets, investors. I'm a little skeptical. I'm definitely not bullish on the outlook for funding and investing as it pertains to biotech. So in terms of trial availability and what's in the pipeline for sites, I'm extremely bullish on that. I think that's going to be phenomenal. That's going to continue. My lens is just a little bit different because I'm looking from, how do we continue on and push through and get to the next phase of where we need to be so that we're NDA enabling. So I'm constantly thinking about the strategic position, direction of my operational team and how to get us to that next step. It's quite challenging in this framework. And personally, it may get better Q3, Q4, but I don't see anything acutely changing from a capital market perspective, at least through Q1, Q2. That's just the way I feel. It's my personal opinion. I'm not any financial expert or economist or any background in that area, but it's just a hunch based on a lot of panels and discussions I've been participating in. So that's my framework, but I continue to, network and I continue to talk to stakeholders at the site level, networks, mom and pop sites, small sites, new sites, all sites. I love sites.
Side
Right?
advocate.
Mm-hmm.
I really am. I really am.
He is. Robert is.
You know,
Uh, Talking about the small biotechs though, because you're right. It's been like a 3 year incredible like freeze as far as small cap biotechs are concerned in the capital markets, and the high interest rates did nothing to help that. There's talk of the rates eventually being lowered, and there's also a slew of potential approvals coming up from these small cap biotechs. There's a lot of exciting ones I'm looking out for. Aquestive Therapeutics is one that I've been sitting on, just like everyone else, for 4 years. Finally, looks like we got some momentum. So there is some positive momentum, I think, to look forward to on the small cap side. I just don't know how quickly that translates over to the non-public,
exactly.
like yours, right?
Yep, yep. We're a privately held organization, exactly, completely privately funded by investors. And, you've got to hit those milestones and they want to see certain things being delivered and
Mhm.
navigating the complexities around all of that. It proves challenging. But I remain optimistic. I love this industry. It's where my heart is. We're doing it for the patients, right? Uh, I think that's why we're all here at the end of the day. Cliche, I get it, but it's the truth. I think I could speak for Dr. Fox and Dan. It's really what it's about, right? At the end of the day, the problem is sometimes, who suffers when the interest rates are the way they are, when the capital markets are frozen, and you have really promising products. Dan, you know exactly what I'm speaking of.
Yeah,
Um, and at the end of the day, who suffers? Everybody
patience.
at once.
Mhm.
Patience, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Which
that
we
that
are all patients, by the way.
that hurts the heart. I'm going to be honest with you because it's just it's unfortunate because if the funding were more available, things would move a lot faster. And regardless of promise and data and this and that, it's investors seem to be a little skittish for privately held, non
Mm.
trade publicly traded companies. So that's just my personal outlook. It's obviously just my own opinion. That's why we're having this discussion. And then, just to piggyback off of that, it's the job market for our clinical research professionals. I see a lot of site level positions, which is very exciting. I think that's says a lot. But I just saw a post 2 hours ago, an mRNA gene protein company. I can't remember the name of it. Hold on. They just reduced 20% of their workforce.
Hmm.
Uh, that happened
Yep.
today.
Did
You know,
anyone catch? There was a post about centricity. Anyone who was affected by the centricity layoffs. So now you've
Oh
got
yeah, I saw that one. The
even
Phoenix
like the big site networks. You're seeing some people doing some layoffs. So
yeah,
consolidation will
there's
do
things
that here.
happening.
Yeah.
So and Robert, that's interesting. We want to talk about sites and sponsors. From my opinion, and this is how this is why I did CRP in the way I did. As far as I'm concerned, sponsors to sites are equivalent to patients to clinics. Sponsors come into sites seeking services like a patient goes into a clinic. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what a site's job is to do, is to serve that patient. Not the patients they're getting data from, but that patient who's walking in and hoping for a miracle, hoping for help. So from like if you were to look at it like that relationship, if I were a clinic and you were a patient and I said, "What do you need? How can I help you feel better?" And what would you say to these sites? Like, because that is the magic. That's where I want you
Yeah.
to know that from me, that's what sites need to do for their sponsors is treat sponsors like their meta patient.
It's a great analogy, Dr. Fox. I love it. And what I would tell sites is we need you to show up. We need you to make good on, what you said you would deliver and at least give it your best fighting shot. And I would also say communicate. We really do, and this is going to be something that I don't want to give away my discussion points. If you're going to be at SOS, you're going to hear some of this. But we really do want to provide sites with what they need to be successful. So if today you have what you need to be successful, phenomenal. And in 3 to 6 months you don't, let's have that dialogue. The worst thing that can happen to us as a sponsor is to be bottom barreled because, I don't feel like we're, reaching out. We've already got awarded 10 more studies since we started that particular trial 6 months ago. So Dr. Fox, in that analogy, that's how I would ask sites to A, communicate with me, B, please deliver. And if there's any bottlenecks, let's discuss it so that we can get you what you need, so that we can remain a priority, finish this study together, meet the timelines, so that we can get these products to market. Because again, without the sites, without the brilliant patients that volunteer their time to further our mission, none of this happens, ladies and gentlemen. None of it.
Can we go back to the first thing you said? Um, if sites do what they promised,
Mhm.
that's a very common theme in my career since 2005. The feasibility process, in my opinion, is broken.
Agree.
There's companies like Inato trying to fix it. They are just getting started. It's probably only benefiting the bigger sponsors for now, and it's only benefiting the sites with therapeutic area expertise. But what do you mean by the sites should do as they promise? Like to what
Yeah,
level, to what extent?
sure. So, again, this is strictly my opinion. I don't want this is not, etched in stone. It's just, lessons learned,
Yeah,
experience just tells me, right? So, what I will say is, you know, I agree, first of all, that feasibility, the process itself is tremendously broken. It's awful. It's not
its
realistic.
foundation is built on lies
Yeah,
at worst, embellishment at best.
yeah, I completely agree. So we'll start with that. So, setting that aside, knowing we need reform in that process alone, it's taking the time. This is me talking to a site now. Please, please, please take the time to really think about your best guesses in terms of what your screening rate will be, what your screen failure rate will be, what your conversion randomization rate will be based on previous history if you have it. And if you don't have it, let's talk. Let's go through, there's no harm in making a look like, hey Robert, I have this patient population. I'm just not 100% sure how many would qualify for the study. Let's talk about that. Let's narrow it down. We're, happy to liaise with you, collaborate. I don't know why it seems like such a bad thing where sites just, if they show, I don't want to say true colors, but if they show where they actually are in the process, that they may lose the opportunity. That
Right.
thinking and mind shift needs to stop, just like sites who are afraid to admit that they want to make a profit.
It's
That
a
needs to stop.
fake it till you make it
Right.
mentality. that
Exactly.
dominates
And
All
this.
right. So I got a question, Robert.
yeah,
Okay. Do you think that if we figure out a way for sponsors to be able to hop across sites without a root canal every time, it would be easier and more honest in feasibilities when sites didn't have so much to lose?
of course. Absolutely.
So what if you were to create a system where you're like, you know what, come in here. The only commitment we're going to have, we're just going to pay sites like $100 to do a feasibility or something like that. Pay them so that they actually do true work. Maybe that's the other thing is maybe feasibilities are crap because it's free work. You
I
get
mean,
what you pay for.
you get what you pay for. I agree. I agree. But I'm not sure, compensation, at least in my opinion, would really fix the issue.
That's a good
Because
question.
it's a good question because the reason I say that, Dr. Fox, is because at the end of the day, you don't know how a patient's going to react. You work for a PI, you're one level of separation from a PI. I represent this doctor, he has this relationship. And Dan, you and I have talked about this several years ago, where you even made phone calls from your PI's office and you're like, hey, I represent this PI, and they hang the phone up on you,
Hmm.
right? I mean, and so when you create that second and tertiary level of separation and start moving to even recruitment vendors, it gets even more challenging. So I come back full circle and say, even if we were to compensate, which I agree, there should be no free work, first of all, right? Sites are entitled to make a profit, and I really want to advocate and tell sites it's okay. You are like, it's okay to make a profit. Like, let's stop. You guys are not 501(c)(3) charities.
Who's
You're,
arguing this in the
well,
first place?
I don't think anyone's arguing, Dan.
Uh,
I think it's those, and I just think it's a silent, like, hey, we got to be really, especially the newer sites. They're very frugal in the fact that they don't know what they don't know and how far they can push
Hmm.
at the cost of potentially losing an
Oh
opportunity that
yeah.
they desperately need,
Oh, if
right?
you make a margin, that's not fair market value. Oh no, we don't want to get in trouble. Oh, we don't want to look like we're milking off of the patients. We don't really. You're a
And
business.
exactly. So agree 100%. And that's exactly going to be the foundation of my discussion, right? What is responsible, negotiation and responsible asks at the same time, and what tactics should you use about knowing who your audience is? Now, let's also address for the audience briefly, for those who may not be in attendance at SOS, and give you a small snippet of a sneak peek. You have to know your audience. A small privately held biotech with a 12-person headcount is not going to have the resources that Pfizer or Merck or AstraZeneca or Eli Lilly or Beijing or any of these companies are going to have. So you kind of can't have just this templated expectation to just blanketly expect the same compensation from every partner you may collaborate with. There has to be some reasonable, responsible expectations based on who you're engaging with. And at the end of the day, you as a site, as an independent contractor, have the ultimate right to determine whether or not you want to work with somebody who is a smaller entity versus a larger entity. So again, I think there's a whole lot to unpack here. And it's going to be a really exciting, fun conversation.
That's a good
Next
point,
week.
Rob. How many sites out there have done background checks on your sponsors before you accept a trial?
yeah.
Look and see how many times they filed bankruptcy, see where they are on their
Yeah,
standing.
How
yeah,
many
How many of
sites look
you
at
do a due
the
diligence like that?
and how many
and yeah,
sites look at the science of the IP? Like, is this something I would want to put my mom in? Like some of these, I mean, I look at some of these studies even before they get to my PI. I'm like, no way, we're doing this study. You
My
know, the
favorite was the study that said they wanted to pull 1 liter of blood from a phase 4 patient,
yeah,
phase 4
like
cancer patient. And
so
they said that, dude, they've got ports, they got all the, and their answer was they'll give them some orange juice, they'll be fine. It's
oh
like,
man,
what the hell?
humanity is just,
there's
where
so
is
many
it?
there's so many different layers to peel back. It's more than we are for profit, but it's more than just business also. Like we are a health care alternative in the community. whether we're supposed to say that or not. I believe that we select our studies based on that philosophy.
So, Robert, going back to that example, right? Let's say you're the quote patient and you walk into a site, which is like a clinic, and you get this, whatever, a quote diagnosis, whatever it might be. You still pay that copay because you went to that clinic and you took work from them. Let's say you didn't like what they had to say and you want to go get a second opinion. So you go to another clinic somewhere and you get a
I'm gonna
second
pay
opinion,
again.
right?
Yep,
Does a patient get penalized for going to get a second opinion in
absolutely
that
not.
setting? So why should a sponsor? That's what I'm
They,
trying to say is sponsors in this kind of a world, they shouldn't lock into like 50, 60, $70,000 commitments at a site that's a dud because that is not a good responsible site. That's not a really good responsible use of resources.
you know what the
So
problem is? I agree with you, but it's not as cut and dry as that, right? I completely agree. The problem is you have pressures coming internally to meet milestones. It's like, hey, first site activated, it has to be on this day. And I don't have time, unfortunately, usually to to implement that type of a process. You know what? This site is most likely going to be a dud. Now I have to find a new one. And on top of it, it's liaising with the CRO partner if you're using a CRO. And by the time you get the communication across, hey, yeah, this one doesn't seem like a good fit. Okay, well now we have to go back to our site identification group and get another list of 15 to
and
20
don't forget, you might
sites.
need a change order for that, Robert.
Oh, you can bet your
Hit them with the
that
change order.
hit them with the CO. That, as a matter of fact, that's a guarantee. So that's another delay, right? So in a perfect world, I agree with you.
But
And if you have, go ahead.
this is where I was talking to a small biotech this morning. They were very inexperienced, and they're using a CRO, and they said, well, just to schedule a meeting to talk about something takes 3 days, and comes with a price. So, hey, we have a question, about this and that. We need, okay, well, let's email this person, then we're going to set up a Zoom. Everyone's going to agree on a date. 3 days later, you're still just talking about it, and you had to pay for it. Nothing's getting done so
Right.
far. You're just talking about it. So, at what point does a sponsor, regardless of their size, say, you know what? CRO is good. We need quality data. We need pharmacovigilance. We need biostats. We need monitoring. We need all this stuff. But when it comes to like the intangibles, you, Robert, if I worked at a sponsor, me, Dan, I'm going to call the coordinator myself. I don't
And
need
that,
to hit
yeah.
anyone with a change order. I'm going to do that. CRO, thanks, but I don't need you for this. I got this.
So
Like,
Dan,
what's
I mean,
stopping that?
if you remember, like I actually did that.
No,
You
you
have for
did, but you're one of
I
the only.
right,
You're
but here's the problem though. It still impacts because at the end of the day, I make the phone call, I circumvent that, but you still have to engage the contracting team within the CRO. They still have to execute the budget. They still have a legal department, especially when you're working with a small infrastructure like I have. And they're only set up based on the initial work order to do X amount of sites. So even if I identify the sites, vet the sites, get them engaged, get the NDA signed, send them the synopsis, the budget contract template, the CTA template myself, there still has to be somebody to execute that. And the signatory based on the work order is typically through the CRO. Right. So they're not going to do that for free either, Dan, right? They're going to
well.
say, oh, well, we're only contracted to engage X amount of sites. So, you know,
My
there's
first
always a,
principle,
yeah.
like back to first principle. Okay, all this tech that we're implementing, that sites are finally starting to adapt. Like eSource, it's growing. eReg, pretty soon, 100% of sites are going to be on that. I think everyone can agree. At what point do sponsors say, you know what, like we have enough tools now, like the infrastructure is here to where we can regain back some of that control over our own studies and still work with the CRO because we do love them, we need them, we don't want to do all the grunt work. But things like following up on the status of an activation, like why can't you just call and find out and then give the coordinator a Starbucks gift card for doing it quickly?
I mean, you can. You can. I mean, it's in practice, it's just it's informing your partners, aka the CRO. And when you overstep that, that communication pathway flow that's been agreed upon, um, it can certainly speed things up, but it always somehow comes back because Dan, who's doing the SIV, right? Who's going to initiate, activate, reg pack, reg doc sign off, IP release?
Hmm.
That's not within the, my wheelhouse because of the current structure of the study. Does that mean we can't do it? No, we can do it.
But you guys
And I,
are reviewing like all the SIV reports, right? Like the sponsors doing that.
I mean, I wouldn't say all of them. I would say about 10% is the general rule from a
Okay.
sponsor perspective. I mean, obviously, some will do more, some will do less, depending on
Okay.
what you see. But I mean, what I'm trying to say, I think that 30,000-foot high level take home message here is that at some juncture, no matter how much of it I do on my own, the CRO would be involved. So back to Dr. Fox's point, okay, this site's a dud. Skip over, let's find the next one, just as if a patient gets a second opinion, right? It boils down to delays. And unfortunately, even though I know it's a dud, listen, there's an unspoken rule here. And if anybody disagrees with me in the comments, or there's any other sponsor colleagues out there that think otherwise or have a different metric, please put it in the comments and let's chat about it. But I always am under the impression that 25% of my selected core sites are going to do nothing. I go into the study assuming this. Like,
What do you
so if I
mean
have
by selected core? Like all the
so
sites that you selected,
so yeah,
or
if I have 40 sites, right? If I have
okay?
40 sites participating in my study, I'm going for 800 patients, large phase 3 study. 25% of my 40 sites, which boils down to what? 10 sites? Is that about right?
Mm. Mhm.
Are going to enroll 0 patients.
And they'll take your startup.
Oh, they'll take it and the closeout fees, Dr. Fox.
And the closeout,
Um,
don't forget.
and yeah, and the pharmacy fees and every, so they're getting 50 to 70 grand for just signing their name and with no risk to them at all. As a matter of fact, yeah, I don't, yeah, that's a very sore spot for me because we just wrote a fairly large check to a site just like that who absolutely did nothing but screen fail patients and enrolled absolutely 0. But um that's what I mean, right? And so it's very difficult. It is very difficult. So we have to. There's a lot of pressures, Dr. Fox, on the inside in order for me, to skip that site. But sometimes, if you think about it the other way, maybe it's worth that small delay, right? Because it's a delay either way you slice the cake. It's a delay up front or it's a delay on the back end. I mean, what's worse? I think from an investor perspective, if you drop the milestone ball, if you will, in the beginning, maybe it looks worse from their purview versus, oh, you met your upfront milestones and something happened on the back end kind of out of my control 6 to 8 months down the road. Now I'm looking for rescue sites. I'm just hypothesizing here, right? I could be
Oh,
completely wrong.
my theory is I don't think that has to be a delay. I think it could be as seamless as literally just hopping sites.
I
Or it
would, yeah,
should
and
be,
it
but
should
that's
be.
currently not how it is.
I
It
think
currently
I
costs a
think
shitload of
that's
money.
what I'm targeting.
Hmm.
I think CRPN could definitely have a solution to help that, and plus and again, I mean, with CRPN, as you know, I'm a huge fan of your mission, Dr. Fox, from a CRPN perspective. I think taking the intel that Dr. Fox has on each of his network sites, would be able to allow me to jump to the next site if that site's not a perfect fit for me, right?
Yeah, and I
But
turned my
anyway,
camera off because I had bandwidth problems.
sure.
But yeah, that's precisely. So in a system where you have a network of managed sites where financial agreements and all these things are in place before a trial is under consideration, and you have members just like patients going through a managed network, it is possible to hop sites. I'm sorry, this site didn't work for you. Let's get you onto this one right away. Boom, boom. There's no delay. It doesn't have to be like that.
I agree. And what about, I mean, why is it so frowned upon? And what would Dan as a site owner, Dr. Fox as a site owner, what about a risk share? Like for example, you forego those startup fees and closeout fees if you don't show up to the dance.
Yeah.
Why
I
why
would take that. I would take that if I can, because I'm confident that we only take studies we can enroll. If we get a higher startup fee after we randomize, let's say 3, than we would have beforehand, or whatever that number is. But yeah, I'd be up more. We actually have a contract with a small biotech that was structured this way. Their idea, not mine, but
Mm.
it worked. It worked well.
See, that's really refreshing to hear because I actually tried to implement that with a couple of my rescue sites, and for one reason or another, I never had received a concrete answer till this day. But it was shot down by legal. Oh no, we can't do that. And the site was willing. They were like, oh yeah, we'll put it where our mouth is. We're going to give you this many patients. We're 100% confident.
Hmm.
And for some reason, that verbiage could not be incorporated. I don't know the rhyme or the reason as to why, but I just think we need to get to a point where number one, there are no delays, there are no dings for hopping sites if that site particularly can't perform. But it also takes the site to really look at that protocol. And I put myself back into the days on where I worked at a site, 14 years ago, 15 years ago. And I think to myself, how feasible is it? I mean, Dan, Dr. Fox, you guys are busy. You have a lot of trials going on. Your coordinators are running around. You got 10 patients on site. You have 5 to 10 studies going simultaneously. Who's that person that's sitting down that is qualified to really make an educated determination and digest that eligibility criteria to really know if you're going to be successful at this trial?
It's
That's
broken,
not
man. It's
that's not
broken.
happening, right? That's not happening.
To do that properly, the feasibility aspect requires like someone to study that IE criteria and study their database, like not just glance at numbers, which is what
Exactly.
people are currently doing. If they even do that, I think
Hmm.
they're just pulling numbers out of their ass for the most part. But
Yeah.
like to actually study it would take some hours.
And
Well,
you've
I
got
Like
mean,
to,
realistically, Dan, you need to read the protocol, not just the IE, and that takes a
right.
long time to digest that.
And you've got to sit with the
forget it,
provider so that
forget it.
well,
Yeah.
that's guys, that's what I'm trying to say from my point of view, right?
Hmm.
That does not happen.
Nope.
So even so that's why, man, I have met a few sites in the Colorado state of Colorado when I was on my rescue search because I knew we needed to bring on some sites because we had to close out some sites. And literally, out of the 20 sites I contacted, I had only one site tell me, and this was a site that was recommended to me from a very large, reputable CRO. Um, the site owner told me, Robert, I can't promise you, and I doubt that I can deliver, and I don't want to impede or ruin my reputation. So maybe we can collaborate on the next one. That was
Wow.
on. I couldn't believe that I heard that. I was like, oh my, I was like, bless your heart. Wow, thank you. You know what I mean? Like that, we need more of that.
Yeah.
Just like with the CRO,
Hmm.
where I'm doing RFPs, and the CRO comes back and says, hey, you're crazy. Your expectations are in outer space. Your enrollment rate is way off. Your timelines are way off. Here's the reality of what your PSM rate is going to be, patients per site per month, your enrollment rate. Here's what the timelines really are going to look like. Here's how long it's going to take you.
Hmm.
And we're comparing that against our assumptions, and we're like, holy moly, you guys are crazy. But then that CRO, I wish I could name them, but I'm not going to, actually said, you know what, listen, we thank you for the opportunity, but we may not be the right partner for you because we don't want to promise something and then you end up change order after change order after change order, and then we look bad because we said we could do it in this time frame based on your assumptions, but we failed to deliver. And so that was very admirable too. I liken that to the site who said to me, Robert, I can't do this for you in this time frame. Like it's just not possible. That's the transparency we need in conjunction with the ability to do what Dr. Fox said, jump over the, if this one's not working out. But again, like Dan says, to get to that level of understanding on whether or not you can make an educated decision on if you can perform takes a lot of time to digest. Like you said, Dr. Fox, you got to read that protocol. You got to digest the patient's journey. Put yourself in the patient's shoes. What's it going to look like at the screening visit? What's it going to look like at the randomization visit? How many times you got to call them? How many times do you have to check in on them? How many times do they have to come to the office? How many times are they being resupplied? Put yourself in that patient's journey. I do when I'm designing a clin dev or a protocol. I think of the patient's journey. I think of the site's journey. How burdensome is it going to be on the site? How burdensome is
Mhm.
it going to be on the patient? Right? I mean, at the end of the day, this is what it takes. And hopefully, tech will be able to enable us to make quicker, well informed decisions around these critical aspects because I'm tired of businessmen who sit around tables and make decisions based on that are going to impact sites and patients.
You
And
want to
they have,
do
you know,
you you want to do a quick speed round? I got this new thing, Fox. I've been playing around with this idea. I got it from Drink Champs. There's ways we can incorporate drinking into it, but it's too early, and I'm too freshly removed from Mexico to be drinking. But I'm gonna give you two choices, right? And if you choose both, then we got to take a question from the audience, or Dr. Fox will ask you one. And this is from a sponsor, Speed Round sponsor, okay?
let's do it.
And they're tough questions because they're both the traditional by the book answer is both, but you got to pick one, or we just go with questions from people right now.
Do I have to take a sip of water?
You can take a sip of water.
Okay.
I was gonna do this with Brad with some whiskey, but
Oh
I'm
boy.
recovering from food poisoning. Okay, quality of data or speed of recruitment?
Quality of data.
Is that an easy one?
It wasn't hard.
Okay. Do you think bigger sponsors will pick quality more than smaller ones? Do you think smaller ones, because of those milestones, they want that speed faster? Like,
I think it's opposite actually.
really?
I think the bigger ones have so much political ties and pull in the industry that they're not as scrutinized
Okay.
as a small company would be. That's why I chose data quality because if I'm above reproach on data quality and integrity and reliability, who's gonna who's gonna say anything to me, right? So at the end of the day, for me, I'd rather have a delay in recruitment but top-notch quality. Whereas a larger company, things maybe they have a reputation, they have a little, it's
Okay.
less scrutiny. Let's just
How
say
about
that.
this one? Experienced PI, multiple experienced PI, impressive CV, many studies, big staff, new PI, hungry, research naive patients.
You know, the obvious answer would be the first one, but I'm gonna go with the second one, Dan, the
You're
green.
going new
I'm
PI.
going new, and let me tell you why. It's the old adage. I'll just say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And
Huh.
so if you have the new PI, you have the new staff, they're
Hmm.
hungry. I think they're just going to be more willing to listen. They're going to be more adaptable, more flexible to change.
Well, you know what they
And
say, Robert? They say fat cats don't hunt mice.
there you go.
I
There you
like
go.
that.
That's it. I mean,
Fat
so
cats don't hunt
don't
mice.
hunt
That's a
mice.
good one.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
mean that's for me. I think I would go with the new greener sites because I think and they want to do a really good job. Some of the larger sites like you mentioned Dan, the first scenario, they're complacent, man. Like
Mm-hmm.
they, oh
Mm-hmm.
my God, how dare you? I have 150 studies in my CV. Like I know what I'm doing. You're wrong. I'm right. It's like I don't want to get into that conversation, and that
Mm-hmm.
happens far too often.
Okay. E-source or paper?
E-source all day.
All day. Okay. Phase 2 or phase 3?
Phase 3.
Phase 3. Wow. You like the stress? It's more stressful, no?
Yeah, but it brings that therapy to market. It brings that change to humanity. It's like it's that step. It's that NDA. It's right before that NDA. There's nothing more enjoyable. Like I still get goosebumps when I see TV commercials where it's like, wow, I remember being at the investigator meeting when that was a pipe dream, you know? And
Hmm.
it's now being used in commercialized market, and patients are their lives are changed. I'm talking
Okay.
about a dermatological drug right now. But the point is, I remember being at an IM in San Antonio when they were like, this is our most valuable asset, it's first in class, and da 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 da,
Hmm.
and how
Hmm.
important it was to them, and it's going to be life changing. It's not an injection, and it's going to be, and I see it on TV, and I'm like, holy wow. I mean, that's an amazing feeling.
Well, speaking of IMs, considering you're the sponsor and you're paying for it, okay, in person or virtual,
In person all day,
it's
no
worth paying for.
substitution.
It's worth paying
Worth
for.
worth its weight in gold.
Wow. Seriously.
100%.
Okay. What are some of the like best things that happen from in
I
person?
just
I.
think that there's nothing like in person, right? Just building that rapport, that relationship, knowing who you can reach out to. My line is open to you. Questions, concerns, accolades, the good, bad, and the ugly. Just having that dialogue face to face, being able to interpret body language. How do you feel about this? I just, there's nothing that replaces that in-person investigators meeting. And that's just my personal opinion. Now, are some indications and some studies, can you get by with a remote IM? Sure. But Dan, people's cameras go off, phones are ringing, answering emails, pinging on
Hmm.
Teams, pinging on Slack, whatever the Slap.
That's a good
you know,
one.
yeah, I'm just like, there's so many things going on. I mean, because it's like it's just like a remote. Dan, let me ask you one: remote SIV or in-person SIV?
Shit, that's tough, man.
Pick one, buddy.
As a side owner, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna go like I like the in-person ones better, of course. There's more rapport, but the remote ones tend to be shorter.
But how do you feel the training is, though? I mean, are your staff better trained
They're
at
equal.
room?
I think they're
Are they?
equal.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Robert, I got one for you.
Yeah,
But
go ahead.
FDA audit or investor meeting?
well, I mean, I'll
That's a
take an
good one.
investor. I'll take an investor meeting. I'll take 4 investor meetings in a day.
Over
Um,
FD.
over an FDA audit.
Brad just said he had a pleasant week spent with a FDA auditor.
It can be pleasant, right? And
Mm.
I'm not saying that it's not, but the preparation and the anxiety build up to that day. I'd rather be grilled by a panel of investors multiple times a day than have to prepare for an FDA
All
audit.
right.
Now, if it's for cause, that's even more stressful. But if it's just a routine, you got
Mm.
chosen, you're a high enroller. In that case, whew, I might lean towards the FDA audit.
Mm. That's a good one, Fox. If you got more, come up with them, man. I got one that may hit close to home. Patient reported outcomes, paper or electronic.
Ooh,
That's a tough one, man.
that is a really hard one. Can I ask a context question to answer?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, does the paper eventually get into a database, or like
Yeah.
how do it does?
Yeah.
Okay, then paper.
I like
I'm
that.
sorry, paper.
I like that. See? This is why we ask these things.
Hey, Robert,
Mister.
overhead letter or budget?
Oof. I'll take a budget. I'll take a budget all day. How about you, Dr. Fox?
Overhead letter or budget?
Yep.
Depends on the budget. You negotiate like a CAR T budget or something crazy with leukapheresis or a sample collection. Um, I think I'd rather Oh God, at least a budget is justified most of the time. You know,
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
overhead, you can tell if they're packing it
If
or
I'm
if
doing
it's,
it, overhead. If Chris is doing it, or Fox, budget. Let the professionals handle it. If it's just me, overhead.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, DCT or traditional?
Mm.
Um, Man, it really depends. But I'm gonna go DCT.
Huh.
Just
Well,
because it's weird. It's
DCT
hard.
and paper diaries. That's crazy.
Hey,
DC.
exactly. I mean, I'm just thinking about the honestly, my questions hinge on the patient experience, right?
Yeah.
I think it's important to give the patient the choice. Are you more comfortable having a 3-hour arrival window by a lab technician, or do you want to know what time your appointment is to come in and
Yeah.
see your and get your labs run? So
Yeah.
there's pros and cons to both, and that's just one small sliver of a pie that I just gave as an example. But you know, I can justify these reasons, and I think patients appreciate paper much more too. And once you make a mistake on an electronic diary, for example, go ahead and fix that. That's a nightmare in itself, right?
Mhm.
Patient-reported outcomes should never be altered. Ask any data manager, QA department at any CRO. Oh my gosh, that's like you're asking to do the impossible. Like that's a patient-reported outcome. No, they can't make a mistake. But on paper, cross it through, initial date it, no harm, no foul, man. Everything's
You
cool.
get a trail. Just do an
No
audit
harm,
trail
no foul.
and show it.
This one, a lot of the sites in our network would want to ask California or Florida sites.
I'm gonna say California sites.
Wow.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Because they have the Bill of Rights and they're just going to be more above they're just going to be more. I feel like they're just more stringent in terms of process, right? Just
Hmm.
that extra California Bill of Rights, knowing the patients have rights and they have to do things in a certain stepwise manner. I'm going to go California on that one.
And then Miami, it's too crowded. You think?
I think it's insanely crowded. Not
Okay.
just Miami. I think the whole state of Florida. I mean, there's
So
the amount of.
in that context, then okay, a site in Florida or an AMC.
I'll take a site in Florida.
Well, there you go. I'm done with my questions, guys. Rapid fire round is done unless Fox has any more. I think I'm gonna
No,
start
it
doing
just
that
it
in
That
really
was
every.
makes
fun.
you the would you rather's. It's kind of like the would you rather's. Now, I
Yeah.
do want to go back to DCT because I
Mm.
think you should really bend DCT into two. One is going to the patient's house, and the other is going to a professional like a doctor's office or something. Um, and like you said, that 3 hour window, that's definitely like patient's house. But the doctor's office, like just go into your doctor's office and be part of the visit.
Mhm.
So, but
And DCT is a tough one to choose now because it's so early.
yeah,
But just with all the popularity around it, I thought it was a good one. And I'm surprised with the answer. I thought Robert would have said traditional.
no. What about NC, man?
North Carolina,
North
they're
Carolina.
asking. North Carolina is harmless, man. There's all kinds of opportunity there.
Mm-hmm.
Or are you talking about CRO? Would you want a CRO from North Carolina, or would you want a CRO from anywhere else?
Anywhere
North.
else.
Mm-hmm. Good old RTP treating you.
Yeah, exactly. I'll
Now,
take
if you're
one
talking
from
about
anywhere else.
sites is wide open in North Carolina
Mm-hmm.
for sites. Dr. Garofoli, thank you for the question. Do you have any sites in North Carolina, Robert, that you work with?
Um, I think so.
Yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
I think
Yeah,
we have a few in our network too, and I'm sure
Yeah.
CRPN also.
yeah. We've got a few North Carolinians.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
no problem with, sites in North Carolina. I don't have problems with sites anywhere really. I just think there are certain geographic distributions, that, it just becomes overloaded and they enroll like just crazy, crazy fast and they make, when you go at that type of a rate and enroll, one site represents 30% of the entire study. population and sample
Yeah, you
size.
probably got to sweat a little bit.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, okay, let's just be candid because we're here. We do know that there's like entire bus tours in the big cities that they take professional patients around every site and they enroll them on like a circuit.
You
So
mean
like, you know,
care access, or you're talking like actual
sites.
like for real?
Yeah. There's in some of the big cities, there's literally a group of people. They have bus tours that take them to every single site
Wow.
on the days of the visit. It's a giant business. That's where like
Oh,
you saw that verified clinical trials thing that people are
yeah,
doing.
yeah. I know who they are. Yep.
yep. I know them. I've used
So
them.
they do that for a reason because you do have professional
Recycled
patients.
patients, right?
Yeah, I mean there's a big business behind that. Unfortunately, it's huge.
That's a shame.
So in that
So
vein, small town or big town site, Robert.
mm,
Small town or big town? Oh man,
That's tough. I
I'm
like these
completely
sweet brown.
I'm completely 50-50 on that one. Maybe like 51% small town, 50% big town. I mean, I guess if I have to pick one, I have to pick one. Small town.
Yeah,
Small
that's
town.
tough.
Just because I feel like they're gonna get better care. It's gonna be less busy and
They'll get
more.
better care. It's less busy. The problems are, which I'm running into, are like vendor, like X-ray. There's only a few choices.
Sure.
MRI, colonoscopy, stuff like that. It's like you only have a few choices. Like you're limited, and if those guys screw up, and it's if that's an
mhm.
important part of your study.
That's tricky. So the specialization. So the thing about small town that I like is the relationship. There seems to be like some kind of a commitment to the trial. Like they're very thankful that they are part of this.
Mm,
If you
Exactly.
go to big city, it's like, man, no big deal. We're used to this.
just another one.
Yeah. But you're
Yeah,
right. You have to have the infrastructure in the small town to take care of it. And that's
yeah,
probably your biggest challenge. And it is a small town. And for that reason, you're probably not going to get as much enrollment, like in volume, but
yeah.
you're going to get far more retention
And quality.
and quality and
Quality, which
dedication.
more
Yeah.
important than speed.
Which is more important. Exactly.
Mm.
I'll take that all day. I'll take 50 small town sites versus 25 big time sites, and I'll take a 3 month extension in timelines than completing it 3 months quicker because I have that quality. Because at the end of the day, I know I always say this, without quality data, can you submit an NDA?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Doesn't matter how fast you did things, does it? No.
Haste makes waste,
There
period.
you
You
go.
ever had a
Yep.
good experience with a AMC on a study?
I have.
Yeah.
I have. Yeah, absolutely. But I've also had some of the worst experiences with AMCs.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I'm talking like, large centers that people travel from the world to go get care at. And it's
Hmm.
like they are the worst research sites I have ever seen in my life.
Hmm.
Which is crazy. But there's good ones out there. There's great ones out there.
Hmm. U.S. only or international studies?
Global, global,
Global.
Hmm.
global, global. I love global. Yeah.
It's tougher though.
Especially it sometimes you do have to be very well versed in order to get drug, for example, into the EU. You have to consider CE marking, and you have to have a QP, which is a qualified person. You have to have certain depot requirements to even import the drug. um, but then there's places like Australia, Dan, where if you're running a device study,
Hmm.
you don't even need like governmental approval. All you need is ethics committee approval, and you're off to the races.
And you
Hmm.
get some
So
tax
there,
credits too, no? You get good
yeah,
tax credits.
there's a lot of advantages for going to different places. I love global studies. I really do. I think they complement one another because you have your core, let's say, United States sites, but then you have I was just talking to somebody about a study they're doing, 22 countries, 900 patients for a eosinophilic asthma study.
Hmm.
Um, and it was just like 22 countries. Wow, and they had 5 CTMs. They were all divvied up doing, this one was doing Japan, APAC, this one was doing, EU, this one was doing. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, and that to me is very exciting, but it can get very complex. It can
Well,
get
and don't
complex.
forget, did you know in some countries auto pay is not allowed?
Hmm.
Sites have to invoice for everything they
Yep.
do,
Yep. Yep.
which makes a lot of the logistics in other countries very tricky on the financial level.
Yeah, I've run into a lot of that, and I think the root of that, Dr. Fox, correct me if I'm wrong, I think a lot of it's AML regulation, anti-money laundering regulation. So I definitely can appreciate that, but I also think that once you clear those hurdles, and get good processes in place, global studies always enroll much, much faster than, studies just in the
And
US.
more diverse. Don't forget that. They're more
That
diverse.
yeah, that's critical, right? Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, so Dan had to hop off for a minute, but Robert, man, I mean, seriously, from a site with a number of sites behind me to a sponsor, like, and I know we're on the same team here, but
Of course.
what would you tell sponsors right now? Like, how would you tell sponsors to have a better relationship with their sites so we can get better research? What would you tell them?
Yeah. Just open up those lines of communication. Just more involved. Stop leaning on your CRO partners to do everything. And, most sponsors just act as a point of escalation. I only want to know about it if there's a problem. How about jumping in there before there's a problem? I think that that's really what I would say. The transparency and communication, consistently coming back. And I know this might not be realistic, but ensuring sites have what they need to not only keep the lights on, but to keep your study, at top of mind. So, those I think are the two big items that I would keep telling, sponsor colleagues to continue to try to strive forward, and also, let sites operate the way they want to operate. Stop dictating how they do their business. If they want to use eSource, great. If they don't want to use eSource, also okay. They need to have the autonomy to make a decision without the fear of retribution.
So I don't know how feasible this is because I know I get it. You know, you have to have like 100 sites, 200 sites sometimes in these big studies. But do you ever think that there could be a world where sponsors, sites, and CROs could all come together in a meeting? Because
Absolutely.
I mean, for me, some of the best relationships that I've had have been when they all work in unison. Like we've got a CRO sponsor site meeting, we sit down, we work things out, and we get it done. Sometimes I feel like it's that whole talk down thing, sponsor CRO, the totem pole thing, that really screws up the whole relationship. Do you think, and as a sponsor, do you think it's feasible at all to bring the site and the CRO up into a level of equality where we talk to each other as a team and not necessarily as a hierarchy?
Absolutely. That needs to happen. It's not even a question of should it happen. It must happen, right? Because from my perspective, the site and the CRO are collaborative partners that are sitting on the same level of the totem pole.
Well, I mean,
One is
technically, they're both contracted agents,
there
right?
you
I mean,
go. Precisely. So from me, it's but you're right. It's that talk down. It's always like we always bring the sponsor in, and I alluded to this a long time ago on a pod. I was like, hey, why do sites feel so upset or some type of a way when the sponsor is CC'd on an email? It's like what did I do? Am I in trouble? That needs to stop, right? What if it's just for the sake of transparency, right? I mean, just so that we're all on the same page. If my site is having a bad experience with whatever, whether it's a vendor, CRO, or even us, let's all get on the phone and align. Everybody should be sitting on the same perch. You can have three different species of birds, but they're all sitting at the same level.
hmm
Like that's what would that like Dr. Fox, that needs to happen.
yeah. Well, okay. And I know it's small scale, but let's talk about SOS real quick. And I keep turning this on and off because I want to make sure the bandwidth's okay and I don't break up. But um, we hired a conference organizer for SOS, right?
Mhm.
So technically, we are like the sponsors, and we hired them to manage the conference, right? They're managing the attendees, they're managing the sponsors themselves at the conference, they're managing all of this. But every single time that there's something going on, I'm copied on the communications. And I love having that visibility, understanding what those conference organizers are doing with my name on it. I don't see why that's not the great way to go for research. For me, it's when a sponsor pulls the site and the CRO up at the same level of organization and say, we all talk together as a team. The sponsor says, okay, guys, this is what I need. How's it going? There's no secrets. There's no, the CRO knows something the site doesn't that is important. That's where it gets really tricky.
I agree. I mean, there's nothing more for me to say other than I agree, and so does this LinkedIn user, right? I mean, we're all equal partners, with the same end goal for the study. There doesn't have to be this gatekeeper that's shielding the sponsor from having to be bothered. Like, no, we're invested in this. I want to talk to you. Um, Sponsors should want to talk to their site partners. Sponsors should want to talk to their CRO partners. They should want to talk to their vendors. And, the three stakeholders should get on the phone, hash it out. Let's be a happy family in a sense, right? I mean, yeah, I don't see why that doesn't happen, but we have to figure out a way and understand what the root cause on how we got to where we got in terms of when a site is sponsor is copied on a correspondence that the CRO loops in the sponsor, the sites, if you pull them, I would be willing to bet 80% plus would take it in a negative connotation, even though it may not be. They don't think it's a transparency motive.
Well, and it goes the other way around, Robert.
It does. It does.
And
You're right.
as a site, like things have not gone with the CRO. I've copied the sponsor, and guess what I got? Well, I don't know if we're gonna work with you on the next trial.
See, the CRO chastises you because you looped in the sponsor.
Yeah, so it's like, why are people being punished for trying to
Communicate.
break? Yeah, what's going on here? Why?
I see.
There is no totem pole, okay? There's no hierarchy, period. If you look at the contract is signed by the site to the sponsor and by the sponsor to the CRO. There is no totem pole. There's no food chain here. Everyone's coming together to do something. And I think that is really part of the problem. It's a cultural misunderstanding. I have talked to sponsors and CROs who treat sites as a disposable piece of Kleenex paper. Oh,
Right.
this didn't work out. Okay, next. Interchangeable wheel. That's not how this works.
And that's why the sites have the scarcity mindset of, oh, it's competition. Let's not talk to each other, or let's embellish on our feasibility because those guys down the street already put 100. Let's put 150, and then you get all these exaggerated like numbers, and it kind of just messes everything up. But I mean, you can't ignore the fact that without the sponsors, there is no industry. Like they're paying for everything.
Again, sponsors are a site's patients. If you think of it like that, it all comes together.
That's a good way to put it.
It
Fox.
is. It really is. Yeah,
Huh.
Fox. That's the way to. I mean, that's the way to think about it. There's
I
there's
like
no,
that, Fox.
and look, I don't want anyone to think that Dr. Fox was yelling at me just now.
Sorry, Robert. I got a little ambitious there.
We're on the same page. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with the fact that there is no totem pole, right? I mean, there isn't. There should not be. So hopefully that's something, maybe a lot of the sidebar conversations. I really want to empower sites to understand that there is no totem pole. There's no harm in copying the sponsor. There's no harm in copying the CRO and the sponsor. Um, and those lines of communications just have to be open. It's all about the support structure, right? Just supporting one another, working towards that shared common interest. And it's really simple. We don't have to make this complicated. I mean, we really don't. It's a simple formula.
You'd think it's simple. You'd
Well,
think it's simple, but
and you think that everyone at these stakeholders would see it this way as equal. But from my personal experiences, I've had to supersede the CRO several times to get things done at the site, and it works, and it pisses people off, and so be it. you know the
You know,
it's,
that's the problem, right? I mean, and I just want to kind of say this, between sponsor and CRO, incentives are so misaligned. I mean,
there you go.
it's just it's something that really needs to be addressed between sponsors and CROs, because once the incentives become aligned, I think a lot of those disparities and people getting pissed off will just melt away on its own.
How
Because
do you
nobody
align
should
it
be.
though? Like, because the
Well,
CROs
that's the $1 million question, right?
they've
I
grown
wish I.
spoiled. I mean, they've got quarterly reviews publicly on the markets. They've got
Yeah.
financial earnings. Like, they've already been accustomed to having it this way, right? To change that payment model for them is game over. I mean, it would make it like not worth their while for some
Yeah.
of them.
And when I mean incentives misaligned, Dan, I mean more so than just payment. I'm talking about skin in the game, right? I mean, these CROs have such a backlog in, book to bill ratio of what
Mm.
work. I mean, some of these CROs are sitting on billions with a B
Yeah,
of unawarded of I'm sorry, of awarded work that has yet to even start, you know. And do you think they care if your study is a success or not? I
hmm
mean, as a small guy in the pond, it's just like the bully on the playground. That's how I feel
yeah.
about it personally, you
here's
know?
one for you. So it's no secret, right? CROs will hide sponsor contacts. CROs make it really hard for sites to find sponsor contacts. So one of the best places to find it is actually the protocol,
Mhm.
the approved protocol. There's going to be a list of communications in the protocol. So if you're an admin, you may have to go to your coordinators, go to your ops people, say, hey, I need the protocol. I need to see who all the contacts are. Robert, how do you recommend sites who want to talk to sponsors can get a hold of the numbers?
So above and beyond the protocol, clinicaltrials.gov sometimes will have a general box or a listed contact with a phone number. If you go on clinicaltrials.gov right now, you'll see my name and phone number. You can email me directly for my study.
Well, we know how
Um,
you feel about that.
Oh yeah,
and
email
yeah,
Robert right now. Ask him to get a study and that you want it ASAP.
yeah.
And
No,
that he's lucky
send
to
you a
be at your
contract.
site.
Yeah. Um, Send me a contract right now. Send me an
There
NDA.
you
I
go.
expect it in 1
Yes.
hour.
Uh,
Um, but honestly, all joking aside, I think LinkedIn. Most of these sponsor representatives are going to be on LinkedIn, and if you don't know a person, just look for the company.
yep.
Then go under the company, go to the about section, go to the people section, click on somebody and say, hey, I'm a site, on your this protocol number. I need to talk to whomever's in charge. I mean, it's like me when I'm trying to get a site. I've had CROs come to me many, many times. Even when I worked at the CRO, I've had some of my team members that, report to me say, I can't get a hold of the site. I'm like, really? Did you
Yeah.
call the general number? Well, I only called the numbers that are in CTMS. I'm like, okay, well, did you just Google the number of the site and get their main switchboard? No. Okay, let's start there. My point is, when there's a will, there's a way. I just want to get a human on the phone. They may not be associated with this protocol, but 9 times out of 10, I am successful just getting somebody on the phone saying who I am, who I represent, what I'm trying to do, who I'm trying to contact, and I get somebody on the phone.
I've done
So
this. I've
you've
done
done
this.
this.
The like this
See?
LinkedIn user.
hmm
Yeah, I've done this recently it works with the smaller sponsors. The CRO wasn't getting me anywhere. I knew the sponsor, so I went on LinkedIn. I found a few people. Dude, you guys ever see that movie Frequency, where the guy he talks to his dad from the future? His dad died when he was a kid, so like they had this walkie-talkie, and he like there was like an
Yes, yes,
aurora
yes,
borealis.
yes.
Dude, the when I reached out to these sponsor from LinkedIn, like I'm a site, I'm working on your study. It was like Frequency, like it was like so surreal to them that I'm actually talking to them. They were so happy. They looped in like 3 people on like higher ups, and within the hour, my question got resolved, and the CRO had to do kind of what they were saying. I mean, it might piss people off, but if you know you're in the right, and I usually do it, I usually save those for when it impacts patient safety. Like, hey, they're telling me this patient doesn't qualify. Let me go ask the people who actually wrote the protocol what they think. And sure enough, they're like, no, there is a way to get them in, and it worked.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like that movie. Like you're hearing from a site, but like you don't talk to these people ever. So it's like, well, where is this coming from?
Right.
It's so
And also
surreal.
maybe like the next person who commented on the next comment, adding sponsor contacts to the study contact in the ISF. I mean,
But why
It
don't
cannot that
they?
really
be done?
shouldn't. It shouldn't be a secret, man.
No,
I
it
mean, you
shouldn't
shouldn't
be.
have to dig for that.
No,
It's
it should just be
crazy.
there. Yeah, it is.
But do sponsors not want like?
You know, see, that's the thing. It's a lot of these people who have been in the industry 25, 30 years, that are just they have a
Yeah, and I've
different
gotten
way
that
of
too. Have you
thinking.
talked to the CRO?
Yeah,
That's why we hired
exactly.
them.
Exactly. Like
Yeah,
we're paying millions and millions and millions of dollars. We're paying 6 figures a month for this company to manage the study, not including milestone payments and budgets and things like that. You know, have you reached out to them first? Like,
But
that
I would bet
that
you that's the answer from the big pharma, not the small ones.
you're exactly right. But it's synonymous to having, this, like I mentioned earlier, know your audience,
Yeah,
right? Your approach on contacting a stakeholder at a small biotech is going to be
yeah,
very different than your approach to
right.
contacting somebody at large pharma.
I would have never
And
pulled that LinkedIn thing with Eli Lilly because who am I gonna get? I'm gonna get
they
like some middle manager somewhere.
you're going to have
hmm
20,000 people to choose from. Who
Yeah,
do you even know to begin with?
right.
And so that's my point. It's the same thing when you're negotiating budgets and contracts and overhead.
Hmm.
Know your audience. You can't have a single methodology that you're going to deploy when you want to reach a sponsor contact. You have to have different scenarios ready to be, like it's like a battlefield. We have this strategy, we have that strategy, we have four
And
different
Robert, do you know who
strategies.
does that?
Who's that?
AMCs. They have an industry level, they
Yeah,
have a grant level, they have fringe rates, they have a tiered system based off of who they're working with.
Well, Robert already said
AMCs
any
do
site in
that.
Florida versus any AMC.
but I think what Dr. Fox is trying to say, Dan, and all joking aside, is that this culture of where it trickled down from are folks who potentially
Mm,
previously worked at an AMC. Now they
mm,
find themselves at the site level, non-academic, and they carry over
mm.
some of those expectations from the AMC life. Am I wrong, Dr. Fox?
That's been my gripe all along is that we know that clinical research is huge in AMCs. That's kind of like where we were founded from, and there's still a lot of archaic things that we have just inflated across this industry for that. Number one, the term grant management drives me crazy. There is no grant. Nobody's getting anything here for free. That belongs in the universities. Number two is honestly the term sponsor itself. So I get it. Sponsors spend money. That's what it is. But again, you're not sponsoring anything. You're buying a product. You're a
Right.
client.
Yep.
Again, it's an AMC remnant, but I think it creates these totem poles that we all have done and these expectations that just are not appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, this was a good convo, guys. LinkedIn user says doesn't matter how long you've been in the industry, sponsors should be
Yep.
hands on and own their studies.
Yep. So if it's okay, Dan, going back to that whole analogy where we're running Save Our Sites, right?
Yeah,
We've got a conference organizer. That conference organizer is working with our name on it to make us
yeah.
look good. I
That's our
would
CRO.
never, I would never turn them loose without oversight, ever. Because at the end of the
Right,
day, it's my name on the line. If we want to have another conference, if sponsors want to have another drug on the market, guess
right,
what? It's not going to be the CRO that with the neck on the line. It's going
right,
to be Robert.
Yep.
right.
And so
But
Robert, you even with a, if you even if you hired a CRO, you're still going to make damn sure they do their job.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
when people like Dr. Ramirez tell us, all right, hey, I still want to go, did I miss? And our CRO told us it's over, and they reach out to us. There's ways we can get them in as a sponsor.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Dr. Ramirez, yeah, if anyone wants to come to SOS, and we're going to cut this off. Monday, I'm done, you know. But if you go over the weekend and you're getting YOLO and you're really feeling it, and you really want to contribute a voice to the sites, I have a really hard time denying anyone the opportunity to have a voice.
Yeah, there's a few others, so reach out. We'll see what we can do. But yeah, good conversation, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great. It's always fun.
Everyone, go connect with Robert. This is not on YouTube yet, so when you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast, you'll see Robert's LinkedIn in the show notes. Same with Dr. Fox. If you're not already connected, you need to be with both of these gentlemen. And looking forward to a great conference next week. Seeing you guys both pretty soon. Actually,
Looking forward to seeing you, Dan.
a
Hey,
week from now, we're in mid SOS. Like we're mid panel. It's probably your panel.
I'll be done. Well, actually, I'll be doing my one little hint for everyone. If you're coming to SOS, I am hosting a 40-minute real-world negotiation workshop. The challenge is you have to negotiate a trial according to our industry's rules in 40 minutes.
Love it.
Let's see if we can get it done.
I like it. All right, guys. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Go connect with everybody. Catch y'all later. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, everyone.